Today we're here to share use cases and a little bit about a methodology that's worked successfully when it comes to AI ethics and certification. On the stage today I have Martin, Melissa, and Gilles. I'll give them all an ability to introduce themselves as well, and then we'll get right into it.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming, everybody. My name is Martin Sabeck. I'm right now the CTO Digital Service in TÜV Süd. We are doing everything related to AI assessment, AI conformity assessment. So if you want to have market access, that is what we can help you with. We will talk more about all the details in this panel.
And thank you, everyone, for having us here. My name is Melissa Aranza Mendez. I am the Emerging Opportunities Senior Manager at the IEEE Standards Association. And I oversee, along with this team, the development of the IEEE certified program.
Hello, my name is Gilles Fayad. I'm working with Alpesh and Melissa as an advisor on the AI side of things for basically AI in smart cities for people, so it's mostly human-centric, as well as on the AI ethics side.
Okay, thank you everybody. And today Melissa is also one of our experts in our methodologies, and Martin will be sharing a little bit about the use cases that TÜV Süd Singapore has been considering, and Gilles very relevantly from the perspective of the smart cities. But before we dive right into that, let me just share a little bit about the IEEE as it's very legible here. The IEEE is a global organization, including a standardization organization that has a number of standards also in the field of AI, ethics, and certification elements. Most of you may be aware of the organization from the Wi-Fi standard. The 802 standard actually comes from the IEEE. But that's not why you're here. You're here to learn a little bit more about certification and pragmatic use cases. So you've probably heard multiple times over the course of today alone, and you'll hear it many more times over the next few days, the idea of the digital transformation as a driver for AI and the driver behind the quantum and VR, AR, and sort of all of these technologies. And as this continues to move forward, and I'm just going to move, you'll notice that naturally there would be opportunities that emerge out of these challenges. And I'm sure many of you have already started to consider some of these from your cases. Yes, there's those that are around efficiency gains and market access and things of that nature, but at the same time, what you'll see is that the introduction of algorithmic systems starts to play a greater and greater role. And we heard in the previous talk as well about the drive of data being incredibly important when we considered COVID-19 and addressing that. At the same time, what comes along with these growth are a series of challenges. And already you see it from the font size here. But also what I would note is that all of these examples up here are real-world examples of what has happened when we haven't taken into account these ideas of AI governance, AI ethics. And so it's incredibly important because in the beginning, if you look at even the transparency case, here it was a case of an algorithmic system was being used to determine not only the test scores of students as the school year was cut short, but also what universities then they might be able to get into, because there are serious ramifications all the way downstream. And you could imagine that having a real effect on the likelihood of someone's not only career, but livelihood going with it. On the front of AI accountability, there was the use of algorithmic systems for loans. And what ended up happening was that in the issuance of those loans, a number of people were denied loans because there was faulty data on the back end. That faulty data actually tied back to some criminal identifications of people falsely. And that led to a number of folks not only going bankrupt, but some loss of life along with that. So this is very serious. It's not just the idea of AI ethics as a nice idea, but there's real lives at stake. You see it also on the front of city governance. Gilles will talk a little bit about this later. But these points of bias, governance, these will come up. But copyright is also a big issue. And as you think about it from both a commercial perspective, but as you think about more and more the use of AI interactions, especially on commercial sides, you also need to recognize what is IP, what is your IP, and what is IP that's been generated as a result of these algorithms, and who owns it, and who's accountable for it. So when we talk about this idea of AI ethics, AI governance, it's so much bigger than some of what you might hear or see traditionally. And this was one of the key aspects we wanted to make sure we pointed out. And what you're seeing here just very quickly is that in the market itself, there are demand drivers that are then resulting, right? So for example, companies have a capacity development challenge then when you start to think about introduction of AI ethics, AI governance systems. And so where do you find the talent? Where do you find these expertise? And how do you know, especially when there haven't been proven examples shown? It's very tricky, right? How do you know? What is the ethics of determination of that? It has also been shown that when you look at the issue, which is also very relevant to both cities and companies, is the idea of procurement. And when you think about even systems that you're purchasing, you have to make sure that your organization is well trained to understand the types of systems you're intaking, but also that it's aligned with their values and perspectives. And so the idea of AI governance is actually very pervasive across an entity. It's not meant to reside in one person. That knowledge has to spread across the organization. It has to be understood, has to be practiced in that way. Because it's only through those actions that is the manifestation of it being realized in the marketplace. And the challenge then comes up is that when that manifestation runs into policy, you have a real problem if you're not compliant. How do you demonstrate compliance to AI ethics or AI governance if you don't know where to begin? You'll see already there's 53 national AI strategies, and that's, I think, a year or two old data. And you'll see on the left-hand side a number of regulations that are coming out that will have real ripple effects as well. And I'm going to ask Martin just to speak a little bit to the AI Act, because that's one that will have ripple effects in many different ways.
Yeah, thanks so much. Can I get a quick show of hands? Anybody has heard about the EU AI Act already? All right. It's about half the room. It is already good news, because the AI Act is going to be enforced in less than 3 years. So it's a huge impact for the entire AI industry and the entire AI ecosystem. So what is inside there? First of all, it adopts a risk-based approach. It does not want to hamper innovation. All the AI applications that have low risks are not subject to any of the more stringent requirements in it. But on level 2 or 3, that is transparency risk or high-risk AI applications, which include things like healthcare applications, any application where you can get physically hurt or which have societal impact, then you're more subject to stringent requirements that include independent third-party assessment. So what are some of the requirements? Things like documentation. What is your AI system supposed to do? Things like transparency. Do your subjects know that they are being judged by an AI system? Right? Things like bias, fairness, human oversight, right? Fundamental human rights. So there's a lot of requirements in there that are then specified through standardization. So, and there, all of this comes together, which makes it practical for a company to comply to that, right? And if I once more summarize, where do those requirements come from? I mean, we talked about trustworthy AI. What does it boil down to? It boils down to, is the AI doing what it's supposed to do, what you expect it to do? And where do these expectations come from, right? It comes from your corporate culture, your value system. It comes from the regulations, right? And ultimately it comes from industry best practices. And if you put those together, it actually you have a path towards market entry. Because in the future, if you were to serve with your AI system a European citizen or are operating in the European Union bounds, you're subject to it. And what we expect to happen, to have a very similar effect just as GDPR. It will have impact on all the legislation around the world, right? We see major blocks forming, US, Europe, and China, and most of the countries follow the regulations inside those blocks. And we have seen also that the US and Europe are very much aligned in what they're doing. So keep an eye on what is in the AI Act because it will influence your business. It actually has the power to disrupt the business as you're doing it today. A lot of companies don't even know that they use AI actively. Look at the definition of what AI is. Even statistical methods, linear regression, analytic methods fall under the AI regulation. Last point I would like to make, how it's being set up. So there's a lot of existing regulations in sectorial, right? For example, regulations automotive, regulations in the medical device, regulations in manufacturing and safety, right? AI Act is designed to be horizontal on top. Whatever your application is, you still have to comply with your industry verticals and then just add on the layer of AI. And then you're done. So then you have market access. So, and then you can actually outpace your, competition.
Thank you, Martin. The one other point which I just want to make here to add to what Martin said is that there's an emphasis also on human in the loop. So what does this mean to have a human in the loop? It means that there's an ability for somebody to step in and pull the kill switch to stop a process from moving forward if something were to happen. You know, if things are lining up for something negative to happen that could affect your company, your customers, the world outside, there's someone there who understands enough to be able to do that well. And so part of the regulations that are coming out across the board are pushing for this element. And it's a critical one. So I wanted to just take a minute and actually see from the group here, what does trustworthy AI mean to this audience here? Trustworthiness carries a lot of context and perspectives. I'd love to hear from the group. I have one person right here, Lloyd, if you wouldn't mind.
I guess one basis I'd like to base my trustworthiness of AI on is to hopefully see it rid of bias, because that's an inherent problem with classifiers that are particularly dealing with language and taking factors such as culture. So a trustworthy AI to me would be one that's bias-free, or at least has a very limited amount of bias in it.
Thank you.
The AI result must be, no worry. The AI result must be explainable. If it is explainable, then it is trustworthy by the way.
Okay, so explainable, bias reduction.
So yeah, I always make a difference between doing the right things and doing things right. So ethical AI for me is a strategic question. Doing the right things, is it creating a better world? That's the question, is it ethical? And then doing things right is the implementation side. So saying, is it transparent? Is it explainable? Is it privacy protecting? Is it free of bias? And is it robust? So all these factors on what does it actually mean on the technical implementation side to get the outcome that we expected, or that not that we expected, but the right outcome.
And one last one in the back, Lloyd.
To me, before we can trust AI, we must understand how reliable the results we are getting are, so that we can actually trust the outcome that comes from it.
For me, trustworthy AI means that if somebody encounters technology, there's a place to go that they can raise their hand to say, I don't trust this. And I would like to see if the IEEE could be a place that people could actually report in issues, because otherwise, who knows? There may be so many instances, but then nobody has any place to report it.
Okay. Just as I'm getting the sign, what you're seeing back here, this is very small font, and just a message for everyone, if you can't hear or if you want to make use of the translation service, please make use of the headphones. There's also a noise canceling element to it. Okay, so in bold, I just want to highlight several of the points that reflect what many of you shared, from explainability to bias to understanding the output in a clear manner. And when you see the names of the organizations here, you know that they have to commit to it, given just the pure scale of what they're working on. So points of unintended consequences, ethical practices ingrained into systems, and even the point of rigor of implementation of technical experiences, values-driven. These are points also to consider when you think about your product going to market, right? Much of the language you hear here is about that. But at the same time, when you think about this and you look at it from the customer's viewpoint, they don't want to engage with a product or service that's going to do any more harm than the last interaction they had with you. And this new innovation that you have, that you're providing them, it should be not just incrementally better, but significantly better. Because why else should they be willing to engage with you and have that trust relationship? And so we did a quick check on how folks thought about trustworthy AI, but what are the AI risks that this audience feels exist? What worries you the most when you hear about AI systems coming to a chatbot or a system? Let's give him a chance back there. Lloyd, would you mind giving him the mic? And then we'll come back to the gentleman here.
Hi, Jason Eisen from U2, a decentralized trust company. Generally, I'm concerned about centralization of anything to do with the trustworthy AI and privacy data, how that privacy actually matriculates through the whole system.
Great, thank you, Jason. And Munir, would you mind, please? Oh, you gotta go.
I guess one inherent risk that we have with our over-implementation of AI is us eventually reaching a point where we're over-dependent on it. And at that stage, as one of the people had mentioned before, we'll reach a stage where it's sort of inexplicable and suddenly starts to become unreliable. And at that stage, we've built sort of all of our systems on it. And since the foundation of all these systems is now starting to shake, I guess our over-dependence is going to reveal itself in sorts of many consequences.
Yeah, it's a great point. Munir, you have someone in the back there as well? That's an important point raised. The soil upon which you grow things will net that result.
Yeah, exactly. So when AI takes a different course from the one which it started, so when it maximizes something on the basis of other things.
And one more, Munir. We have just one more gentleman.
Yeah. Sorry. So I believe the most important thing is there is no human in the loop. This is the much risk thing in AI system when it comes to industry. So there always need to be a human in the loop in the development and in the implementation of the AI system. So this is one of the most significant risks, I would say.
That's a really good point. And as Martin mentioned, one of the points that comes up very strongly in some of the impending regulations as well. What I wanted to show up here is, I don't know if everyone can see this, but you'll see from a McKinsey survey here that was done just last year amongst a majority of companies, you'll see that the three major points that they have are actually very much what the audience here shared. You look at it from the point of regulatory compliance, the socio-technical elements, and then organizational reputation. And so the natural question is, you've heard about several use cases, you've heard about some of these challenges from the audience, you've heard about what trustworthy AI should look like. And the question is, that's great, but where do you go from here? If you actually wanted to start today, and as you saw earlier, digital transformation is moving, AI implementations are moving. So how do you catch up with the innovation while still ensuring that the implementations that you're both testing and maybe putting out are something that your customers or your audience is willing to still interact with? I'm just going to skip over that. I'm going to share on this slide, what you'll see is that there are several approaches already being taken in the marketplace. And I'm going to ask Melissa to just talk a little bit about the work that's going on within the training programs that are being run around these certified aspects, and how it might even tie back to some of the aims of hiring, internal orientations, and external commitments.
So IEEE certified can help organizations build capacity. And so if you are interested in gaining awareness or more intelligence on AI ethics, we have offerings for you that can help you do so. As well, IEEE Certified has an assessor training program that can help you become an expert in preparing your organizations for AI ethics readiness. So just in case, or in the event that these regulations that Martin had mentioned come to fruition, which we are thinking it's going to be soon, you are at least ready and prepared with an assessment and with a risk profile.
Thank you, Melissa. So the point, the major takeaway is that there are principles, there are policies, there's a number of soft norms that are out there as well. And as you think about from a training perspective, one of the biggest criteria isn't the certification alone. It's actually building up the internal capabilities so you understand, if you're working on something that's high risk, that you know how to address it. If it's something that's low risk, it's a toothbrush with AI in it, there's a much lower likelihood of concern. But if it's something that falls into the high risk categories, the AI Act highlights a few from a European perspective, then you absolutely want to have the ability internally to conduct the audits, to understand. So before you even go into those interactions with test labs, assessors, you know what you're getting into. You can explain clearly how your business works in relation to these criteria set. And what you've done just by going through that process is about 3 steps that the AI Act is already asking you to do: documentation, clear accountability assignments, and then building towards transparency. So these are some of the things to think about. And what we're sharing here really is sort of just a basic way to even think about it. And this is very high level, it's very basic, but it doesn't actually need to be that much more complex than what you see here, right? The first is just understanding the readiness of your organization in relation to these AI system implementations, and as you think about it, even from an AI ethics and governance perspective. The second is around being able to understand the gaps that emerge between your current state organization and the vision that your organization is looking to meet in this new environment. And then along with that, it's understanding the risks that you have to address, your risk mitigation techniques, your approaches along with programs, and et cetera, and your investment approaches. And then finally, it's determining how to communicate this to the marketplace in a clear way, whether it's through a certification or another means. What you're seeing on the right hand, or I guess the left hand side here, are the resources that the IEEE has available today. Most of them are free Creative Commons access that you can download as part of your forward path. And you'll see here is the AI Ethics Readiness Framework from our Ethically Aligned Design for Business work. And this framework was designed by a host of corporations that came together to identify how to move forward. The point is that basically, again, it's very, very straightforward: lagging, basic, advanced, and leading. And this just gives you an ability to quickly say, where are we, with a quick litmus test, and then get a sense of where do we want to be, and where do we need to be in relation to the markets that we're in, or the groups that we're working with. Secondly, Martin mentioned this point of standards playing a critical role. And one of the standards that we have a pretty good sense is going to be applied in a number of these areas of the world is this 7,000 standard. And the reason why I'm noting this is because one of the critical aims as you go to deploy AI systems, and you consider from an ethical perspective, is you start thinking about it at the design phase and the pre-design phase instead of at the implementation phase. And when you start to do that, and then you also introduce an AI governance board, let's say, you then start to work towards developing de-risking mechanisms to mitigate the likelihood of a solution going out to market that presents issues. The process in detail is there, but it's an eye chart. This one other one I'll note, and I note in big letters, is human well-being. And in our life at IEEE, if you came to 6 years ago, you would never find this in the work. But our community saw that this was something that needed to be addressed. And it was really through their work that there was an active push towards human-centric design, that you saw 200 different principles emerge around the world. You saw the AI Act even make use and reference a lot of the work here. And it pulled a lot of our community into those dialogues because of the importance of accessing that expertise, which isn't so readily available around the world. And so what came along with that was the importance of having vetted experts that understand how to consider this human-centric design, human-centric implementations. And this document was their first byproduct. Out of this work, and it's been translated into multiple languages around the world now, and it's completely Creative Commons. It's free. Anyone can download it right now and use it. The point here is that as your organization begins to think about how do we move in this direction, there's a critical set of questions that already start to help guide you. You know, even to solve the right problem, you have to start asking the right questions. And within this framework, there's a host of these to make use of. I mentioned procurement earlier, and this point on organizational governance will only grow in importance. This is one of the most single important elements in addition to your implementation that is to be taken not only seriously because you have to think about the right balance, composition, and reflection before these things come to market. And so there's a group of experts working on that standard at the moment as well. And there's a host of great standards we have there. I won't spend any more time looking at those. But I wanted to highlight one other thing. AIE, we've been talking about in the framework of AI ethics. It also functions for us as a part of our training. A is around awareness, I is around intelligence, and E is around expertise. On the stage today, we have 2 experts already in our certified process. We have Martin and we have Melissa. And I do highly encourage you to take some time to speak with them about how to think about implementing in relation to a certification schematic. There's also free training that we'll share all the links to with everyone through the organizers. So certified is something that's been mentioned multiple times here. It's about our AI ethics certification program. And what's different about this is that it's only a small step. It's not an entire new system you have to learn. It's based on risk management approaches, and it's the utilization of a criteria set. There's over 800 of them, tied around 4 or 5 different contextualized documents. And also at the moment, they are now being applied for the areas of autonomous vehicles, and there's also work going around e-health systems and also in the space of children's data governance. So this is more about our process here, and the aspect here that I just wanted to note, we spoke about having an AI governance board within your own organizations. Also in relation to the work from a certified assessment, there is a panel that sits there to take in and review any of the assessments done by any of our assessors. And that's a really critical point because that's an additional bias review. And it's also an additional element that makes sure the contextualization is being done correctly. So the wrong weights are not being applied incorrectly. So I'm going to ask Melissa to talk about a real use case because a lot of this has been sort of high level. But with the city of Vienna last year, we helped to certify a very specific use case for them that Melissa, who is directly involved in, can speak to. And I'm going to ask Martin then to talk a little bit about some of the use cases TÜV Süd, Singapore, is looking at as things move forward. And then I'd like to show you a real-world example of an organization that has taken these principles to heart and is a major organization, and share a little bit about how they've done it. So, Melissa?
Okay, so we had conducted a pilot of IEEE certified and the implementation of it with the city of Vienna. Just a little background on the city of Vienna. So in particular, their public utilities department. They are a world-class intelligent city. Their public services department has a customer base of over 2 million residents of the city of Vienna and the surrounding areas. Now, the primary way that the customers communicate with the municipality and the public utility is via email. And so the organization basically receives maybe up to 1,000, maybe more emails per day. So they had come to us with a request to assess their email classification system that they were building that to solve the problem of this volume, because at the time it was they had one employee handle the 1,000 emails per day, which basically allowed that person to scan through an email for maybe 30 seconds and classify it manually. So they built an email classification system and they came to us to try to determine its ethicality. And so we applied the IEEE certified methodology based on the criteria, and it consists of 4 steps, basically. The inquiry process, where the assessors try to understand the system completely and the organization around it. There is a risk profiling step where an ethical impact index is derived based on the human values that are affected by the AI system, and also what impact the AI system has on those human values. And from there, you derive the criteria set and also the criteria suite. And then comes an assessment where the organization builds a case for ethics with the help of an assessor. And once the assessor makes a recommendation for certification, it's submitted to a certifier, and the certifier then validates it independently. So the outcome of this was a certificate that was awarded to recognize that the system was able to meet the criteria that was specified. So, should pass it to you?
About those cities. So, just the city of Vienna example is just an example of how a city is trying to apply a service to its citizens. So it's very human-centric because these are services for citizens. These are less about IoT-based services in a smart city environment and more about the services that you deliver for the citizens in the city. And these services, now that they integrate an AI component, basically integrate a decision-making component, which traditionally has been performed by a human. And so how do you make sure that the AI is going to behave in a way that is correct fair, transparent, accountable, and in line with the values of the citizens. So if you try to address the problem this way, and what you have is a solution that has an AI component, it's very hard to know where do I start from. So you can look at the AI solution itself that you have either developed or picked from someone off the shelf, from a provider, a solution provider, and you can go so far in terms of deciding how much of this solution in itself is ethical. But that doesn't answer the question that we have in terms of how do we make sure that we are offering an ethical service, not only at the development stage because it has been developed with methodologies that help you be ethical from an AI perspective, not only from an implementation stage, but also for an operational stage. Because at the process level, it will tell you how do you develop your software. It will not tell you how do you run your organization. What do you need to have in your organization, like the gentleman was saying, in terms of having a person, a human in the loop, to make sure that the service behaves as it should behave. What is it that you need to have at all the levels in the solution, and how can you verify the quality of what comes out? Not just because you have followed the process, which is necessary, but it's not sufficient. Not just because you have assessed a level of risk, which is important because without that level of risk, you don't know if you can deliver it. But how can you ensure that the people are treated the way they should be within their ethical values? And for that, what you do at that point is that you need to be able to measure the outcomes of your solutions. And measuring the outcomes of the solution is part of the certified process that Melissa was mentioning. So that certification process is one by which you build the evidence of how you are working according to the criteria that you think are important for your use case. The gentleman was talking about the ability to explain the result of a solution. This is explainability is part of transparency. And if you delve into it, you might have 200 or 300 sub-criteria that you need to focus on in order to be able to answer these questions. And all of these questions, the 200 or 300 questions, are basically what helps you build your case, build your demonstration, your evidence that your solution, and the verification that your solution is indeed ethical. And this is the process you go through. You do it with an assessor, and then once you and the assessor, who is an expert in the domain, is able to say, okay, this looks good, it's not enough. At that point, what you have is self-assessment, is what you consider is good enough by yourself. But this is not maybe good enough from another person's perspective that you might not have taken into consideration, or from a person who doesn't know who you are in the first place to decide that it is ethical. So what you need is an independent verification of that process, and this is where you have a certification body that comes in and says that the process is certified. At that point, how do you make sure? Because trustworthiness is really about the ability for people to trust machines, right? How am I going to be able to trust that service? How do you make sure that the people who are going to use the service feel comfortable with that? And this is where you basically offer them a mark of certification. This is a mark, it's a label that tells them that this product has been verified to comply as it is supposed to comply, as it was designed to comply. And this is basically what the certified process is about.
Right, thank you. Actually, I just want to add just 2-3 words from a TÜV Süd perspective as well. So now we have heard about a very successful case, the city of Vienna. They have an AI system that works, right? They succeeded with AI. So all in this audience, I think we want to succeed with AI, right? Or is anybody here who don't want to succeed with AI? I don't think so, right? So that's exactly what TÜV Süd is doing. We are helping companies succeed with AI. What does it mean? That the AI system has quality, as Jill just explained, right? once you have the quality, you satisfy all your stakeholders' expectations. The citizens from City of Vienna or the officials, everybody is happy with it. And now they have a certificate, a mark to prove it. And this one has trust in it, instilled in it. IEEE, as the trust anchor, as the oversight of the criteria, they instill that trust. So if you have an AI system that needs to satisfy your stakeholders' expectation, meet your stakeholders' expectation, and have a label on it that they can trust. And that is also what TÜV is doing. So if we break down AI quality, that is the thing that you want to have, AI quality. How many of you have actually thought about what does it mean? And we as a service company can actually help you breaking it down. And we have a framework, defined it into 6 pillars. Safety, security, ethics, very important one, legal compliance, performance of the system, and the sustainability. 6 pillars that make up quality, very well defined. And then inside these pillars, you have individual characteristics. So now, when you go through that, you can actually show to all your customers that you have met their expectations. What does it do? They don't need to become AI experts anymore, right? They have an easy way to see that your AI system conforms to their expectations. Expectations can be regulatory compliance, right? Can be just your stakeholders, your customers' expectations. This is what you want to have. And that is what it means to succeed with AI, right? You don't sink any more funds into AI projects that fail. You have successes. What Melissa just said, the City of Vienna case is a lighthouse, right? A very successful use case of artificial intelligence, and we hope that all of you will also succeed with your AI systems.
Thank you, Martin. So we have many more words, but I think the point it's a good point to summarize on, and perhaps even share a bit of good news with everyone as well. Is this idea of AI ethics, of having quality solutions for your customer, this idea of trustworthiness. The most important thing I'd like everyone to just walk away with is that it is doable. It is achievable. So if you walk away with at least that in your mind, that getting to a trustworthy AI implementation is feasible, that's the big win here. We have tools, we have services, we have great ecosystem partners, and we're happy to help anyone that's asking for help. But at the same time, we don't want anyone who is encountering now all these changes in the world and dynamics being impressed upon their implementations to all of a sudden feel that it's not feasible. It can be done. City of Vienna has shown it can be done, and we believe that you can do it as well. So along those lines, what I wanted to also just share with folks is, and I'm going to ask Andreas to come up here with me as well. So we're very pleased to also announce, sure, come on up. Very exciting, that we're working very closely with TÜV Singapore to help bring trustworthy AI a reality to you. And so what that means is that we're teaming together to better understand how the expertise that Martin shared and the certified expertise and criteria that were shared earlier by Melissa and Gilles can be applied to helping you solve your problems in a very pragmatic, practical, and methodological way. Andreas?
Just a few words. Really exciting. First time we talk about this very strategic partnership. And the complementary part is really the value proposition we bring on the table. IEEE came from the ethical part. TÜV is a safety company, right? We make sure that cars are reliable, security is in place, technical systems are reliable. And we put these different aspects together into a framework which is not only comprehensive, but it's also pragmatic. It's available, so if you come to us tomorrow, you have a problem or a specific AI product, and you want to either sell it to Europe in the next 3 years, or you have certain safety requirements in mind, or you want to prove a certain value, ethical value, we can give you basically the specific requirements actually after an assessment, requirements you need to meet so that you can comply or achieve the overall targets. And this, I think, is a very compelling collaboration here to really put these two competences together. So really exciting, and it's really the first time we share this officially. And very soon we are on the next AI Summit to share much more about this collaboration. Thank you very much. Thank you.
With that, we're happy to take any questions the audience may have. Okay, then we've done our job. Everyone feels they can take it forward from here. That's wonderful. That's the best thing to clap about. Thank you, everybody. We appreciate your time.